In this episode of the Buckland Valley Goldfield, we look at the large-scale hydraulic sluicing, a type of mining that was responsible for blasting entire hillsides away and leaving much of the landscape we are familiar with today. But we also take a closer look at some of the more subtle archaeological features in the landscape and rediscover an ancient technology. With the help of the Heritage Rat team and a bit of bush carpentry, we reconstruct an ancient device that hasn't been seen on the field for over 120 years. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Buckland Valley Goldfield, and if you do, please like, share and subscribe. And as always, we really appreciate your comments. I hope you enjoyed this episode and we hope to see you real soon. Cheerio.
Now in 1858, a new method of mining was introduced that improved the way the alluvial mining was undertaken on this field. It would also have a profound effect on the landscape. The use of high pressure water or hydraulic sluicing was to play a major role in the mining of this field. It was as if the Buckland was made for this type of mining. It had an abundance of water, usually all year round, and it also had the topography to contour this water to great heights above the valley floor. Now the earliest forms of hydraulic sluicing used low pressure hoses, and these were made of canvas, and they also used just small nozzles. The setup looked a bit like a firefighting unit. What we've got behind us is what was known as a sluicing paddock or pit. I reckon we should go down and have a look in one of these pits and see what actually went on. Actually what the hydraulic sluices were after. This is actually an ancient riverbed that has been buried under 50 feet or more of orange hill drift or loam, the older river channel moving further down the hill. This is actually called a stranded lead because it's on the side of the hill, much higher above that river level. And it was in all this ancient riverbed that the miners got their gold. Now, all of this overburden in the early days of alluvial mining had to be stripped by hand, but with the introduction of hydraulic sluicing, all of this could just be hosed away. Now, by the 1890s, hydraulic sluicing technology had evolved even more, and the earlier canvas hoses were replaced with steel pipe. And this steel pipe could withstand a great deal of pressure. But also at this time, hydraulic sluicing was advanced with the introduction or the replacement of the earlier nozzles by the introduction of a much more manly thing called guns, monitors and cannons. And these guns actually had huge amounts of energy and they could just hose away all these steep banks. succumb to the pressure of these new nozzles. As they were directed to the undersides of these large earth banks, they would undercut them and big huge blocks of loamy ground would come crashing to the ground. The old timers reckon the high pressure of these new monitors and guns could actually cut a man in half. And you could believe them too when you see the vast areas of hillsides that have been washed away by these devices. Sluicing paddocks, you see these beautiful stone retained channels. These are actually tail races, and these facilitated the removal of all of the overburden, and also they carried the gold bearing gravels down into the sluice boxes. Deeper sluicing pits, they were actually required to dig a deeper tail race to help drain that claim. And in this case, they've had to cut one through solid bedrock. And this would have been a very expensive undertaking for the company. Walking around the Buckland can be actually a hazardous undertaking, with literally hundreds if not thousands of shafts hidden amongst the scrub. The majority of these shafts are round in shape, and it's thought that Chinese miners actually dug these round shapes. That's probably true, but more importantly, these round shapes are much more structurally sound, a bit like the arch in a building. And if you were working down in one of these shafts, you'd be very conscious of the ground above your head being very structurally supportive. Wouldn't it be interesting to have a look down the bottom of one of these? About 60% of these round holes, we notice that particularly after the fires there's this exposed trench leading into it. Now I've often pondered what this trench is, and people have often asked us, well, what is this trench for? But we've had no answers. Well, that wasn't until recently when I came across an illustration in an old mining book. Now we figured this trench may have something to do with working of that shaft. And when I came across this picture in this old mining journal from the 1860s, we saw this weird thing. And it was actually an ancient Egyptian device known as a shadoof. And the Egyptians used these to raise water from short distances into wells and so on. And this got me thinking, I wonder if this trench has got something to do with that, and I wonder if Chinese used this ancient technology on the Buckland Goldfield. Now we're going to conduct a bit of an experiment today that'll hopefully reveal something quite extraordinary for the first time in over 100 years. So we've got the Heritage Rat team together to help us with this little experiment. Come on, Bill. We've got Bill. He's an expert carpenter, and we know he's an expert in old boilers. And we've got Gary. He's an expert timber fella from way back. So come on, fellas, let's get stuck into it.
No worries, let's go.
We're actually going to do a bit of reconstruction archaeology and rebuild one of these ancient shadoufs or hand whips and see if it actually fits in with these funny little trenches on these round Chinese shafts. Comprises basically of a vertical post buried into the ground and this cross beam, which is counterbalanced with a bag of rocks at this end. Down at the business end, we'll go and see what happened down here. Now, basically we've got the hook on the end of this big beam tied to a rope, and we've got our bucket. So we reckon the operator would have stood in this trench, lowered the bucket down like so, down to his mate down below. Watch this beam as it comes down so it doesn't knock him on the head. Now the bucket's actually nicely on the bottom of the shaft. His mate down below, fill her up. So fill up the bucket, hook it on. The operator would then pull on this rope with very little effort whatsoever. Haul of this bucket with quite a bit of weight, probably 20 kilos of weight or something in it, or 10, 15. Unhook the bucket, and then dump it on the mullock dump just behind there. And there's a curved little path behind me where he walked just to tip his bucket off. Quite remarkable. Now traditionally, Europeans would have used the old-fashioned windlass. Now both Bill and I have worked in mines before, and we've used a windlass for a long period of time. And Bill, using that compared to a windlass?
You could use this all day.
Yep.
So easy.
Yep, and using a windlass, you're burning off a lot of energy, actually physically lifting it via that handle of the windlass. This way you've got the counterbalance at the back, lifting it. This is something that hasn't been used on the Buckland field for 120 years perhaps. And I'd like to thank these guys for helping to rediscover this important part of this Chinese heritage. Thanks, fellas.
Lovely.
Now, get to work, you lazy bastards!
Let's work. So easy.